Hey everybody, Ben Frederickson here alongside Jeff Gordon for another episode of Inside Pitch at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. I'm told that it's cold and rainy back in St. Louis, so I came out here to the porch to show Gordo our palm trees down here in Jupiter as we continue to cover the Cardinals. Lots to talk about this week, another busy week for the Cards, Gordo, but continued discussion around this rotation. Some good news. It sounds like Kwang Kim is going to be back sooner than maybe the Cardinals initially expected as he works his way back from that back tightness. And Miles Michaelis has resumed some baseball activities, so he's for sure going to miss at least the first start of the season. The Cardinals are kind of hoping, fingers crossed, that maybe he'll be back sooner rather than later. That being said, they still got to figure out who's going to fill those spots if they need them. Right now, it looks like John Gant is the lead man to plug one of those holes, at least temporarily. You've got Jake Woodford. You've got Daniel Ponce de Leon and also Johan Oviedo. Who do you like in this kind of rotation conversation if some of the main guys are going to be out to start the season?
Well, I don't know that he'll get a lot of work, but the intriguing guy is Johan. Johan's got electric arm. If that slider's tight, if his command is there, this guy's got all the tools. He came in as a very exciting international signing and progressed pretty quickly, but found out you get to the big leagues, if you don't have great command, that electric arm doesn't mean a whole lot. So there's a huge upside there. That he's an exciting guy. Now, right now, he's a fallback. He's more of a depth starter as they look at more experienced guys. Gant intrigues me too. I mean, if he can master the cutter/slider to go with the Vulcan, and he's did a great job in relief, but they almost killed him a couple times with the amount of work he got in repetition. So I'm intrigued by him and his ability to round out his repertoire, but also the upside of Johan.
Yeah, I think the plan for Oviedo is he'll be a starter. They're not going to push him into a bullpen role, but I think they got him kind of slotted to start in the minors as if they need somebody, they go to him. He would have liked to be, of course, the first man up. It does seem to me like it's trending more toward Gant. I understand why. He's been effective. He's pitched great this spring. Personally, I think he's more effective as a reliever, but again, we've talked about this before. They're not going to go super deep with these starters this year, except for maybe Jack and Adam Wainwright. Other guys are going to be held to, I think, more limited innings. You're not going to ask them to go, that many times, 3 times through the order, unless they're really dealing. And Gant's the guy who gets shelled 3rd time through the order. He just gets hit really hard. They figured him out by then. That's been the trend line for his career. I think the Cardinals can keep that in mind and still start him, although you lose a valuable reliever. The one thing that makes me really intrigued by him is he's using his curveball a lot more in these starts. And it's a pitch that's harder to establish when you're coming in a relief setting. You get a little more time and a little more, depth to your pitching when you're a starter. You can use more pitches effectively, I think, for him. And that curveball looks pretty good. So if he can get command of that and mix it in with his other pitches, then maybe he can hold that spot and make things interesting when some of the other guys return. Again, he could also shift to a bullpen role if they get Miles and KK back, and I think that would be the plan. I want to ask you about Carpenter, Gordo. We've talked a lot about Matt Carpenter, slow start this spring. It's not as bad as the numbers look. He is hitting some balls hard. He's taking his walks. He's working counts, but I know that nobody in St. Louis wants to hear that. And at the end of the day, Carpenter knows he's got to hit. It's going to be harder for him to do that now. Matt Carpenter has heard, Mike Shildt say that Tommy Edman is going to be the leadoff hitter. He's going to be the second base starter, at least to start the season. Shildt said it's okay to read into the lineup that every time Edman has started in a Grapefruit League game, he's hit leadoff. It's going to be Edman's chance to end that Cardinals leadoff slump that dates back to the start of the 19 season. This means, at least for now, a bench role for Matt Carpenter, getting a chance to maybe pinch hit in some spots. It does not sound like the DH is coming to the National League unless a pitcher gets hurt trying to hit here in one of these upcoming games and they make a late change. Where do you see Carpenter fitting in on this team right now?
It's just tough. Hitting in a part-time role is difficult. And for Matt, who's had trouble establishing his getting into a rhythm in a more of a full-time role, it's especially daunting to try to be an effective hitter as a part-time guy. And, if he could hit, if he could deliver good at-bats, there's work for him. The occasional start at second base when Tommy needs a rest, or a start at second base when Edman plays some shortstop to give Paul DeJong some rest because Paul really got worn down last year. They definitely need more. They need good at-bats from their bench infield. They need to be able to get guys some break, and you can't lean too hard on Tommy. So there could be a role there, but, man, if you're struggling to hit as a regular and now you're trying to do it as a part-time guy, you're trying to keep some semblance of a feel at the plate, that's a real tough spot for Matt. And I can't imagine that the spring has gone as well as he hoped for.
We'll see if he can make things a little more interesting here in the final half of spring. I guess getting closer to the final third now. You mentioned the bench. Kind of seems like Edmundo Sosa is going to be the other depth infielder there for the Cardinals. The bench will depend on if Justin Williams has options left or not. They still don't know. Major League Baseball has not told them, which is insane to be this far and not know. One guy to keep an eye on, Jose Rondon. He's hit the heck out of the ball here. He's on a minor league contract. He's not on the 40-man, which makes it harder to make the team, but he's hitting, and he's got power. And if he were left-handed, he probably already would be on this team, would have made it by now. But I want to talk last thing about offense. You mentioned Paul DeJong. He's had a slow spring. He's starting to look a little better now. He hit a home run against Jack Flaherty in a B game on the backfields the other day. Hit better in the Grapefruit League game after. They need him to fire up. But the more and more we see Shildt moving Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt in that 2-3 spot, the more it raises the question of, well, that could be great and maximizes at-bats for those guys, but who hits cleanup? Who's going to get the ducks on the pond in to score runs? Carpenter is going to be on the bench. He would have been a candidate if he were smoking hot hitting this spring, probably. Edman's going to be leading off. Paul DeJong has had a slow spring here. Can Tyler O'Neill creep all the way up? I mean, Tyler O'Neill he's hitting 500 this spring with power. He's hitting it to all fields. He looks very much like a starting left fielder. Could he find himself in the heart of the order after entering camp, not knowing if he was going to be a starter?
Yeah, it's a dilemma. I mean, this lineup, it's questionable how much depth this lineup is going to have. If they start off with the top three, you're very excited about that. You know, an argument for putting Dylan Carlson second would be it's a protected slot, and perhaps that would be a better spot for him than hitting down in a run-producing spot in the middle of the order where there may be more pressure. And I'll always look at DeJong as a very good player who's, I think, would be a great number 6 hitter, but I don't think this team has that luxury. And O'Neill, it's a great story. So far, so good. He tried to put himself in a great frame of mind coming in with his hitting approach. He's answering some questions early on. It's just spring, admittedly, but so there's some excitement about him. But all of these guys would be great and this has been a story for the Cardinals for some time. All these guys would be great as a number 6 hitter. But the question is, what about 4? What about 5? Different deal, right? So they've got a lot of number 6 hitters, and they got a great top 3. How's that going to come together? Who's going to step up? Still high hopes for Dylan Carlson. I guess he's got to be the guy that really adds that punch in that run-producing spot.
Don't sleep on Yadier Molina. He has a knack for getting guys in. He's a very situationally strong hitter, and we know Shildt likes moving him up when he gets the opportunity. So I wouldn't rule him out of that 6th spot. But you're right. To me, the biggest question right now of spring, offense-wise, it's Dylan Carlson and Paul DeJong. If those guys can get going, this lineup looks pretty dangerous. If they don't, it looks like you got 2 really good hitters in Goldschmidt and Arenado, and a lot of guys who are going to be trying to drift off of those guys. You need those guys to be in prime spots, making a difference for this team to score a good amount of runs. So we'll keep that monitored down here in Jupiter. You stay warm and dry back there in St. Louis, Gordo. And we'll be back next week for another edition of Inside Pitch. Have a good week, everybody.